Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday to you, and welcome to the first set of functional panel discussions with Google's VetNet Career Week. We are so happy to have you with us. I am Jackie Colbert. I'm an HR director and a proud U.S. Army veteran. Go Army. All right, now all jokes aside, I'm still gonna go all Army, but joining me today and over the next hour, I'll be talking with 4 Googlers who have business roles to discuss their journeys, recommendations for finding similar roles, and what day-to-day in the life of and expectations are in their functions. You know, when many people think of Google, they sometimes assume only that we probably just focus on hiring engineers or people who can code. I'm here, I can't code, and I'm not an engineer, so it's really not true. What you will hear from our panel today will demonstrate this case as well. You will also hear their stories, and we'll uncover what will hopefully be some great insights to inform your career decisions. Now, we're going to get started in a little bit with the folks who will be joining me. I have Melissa, John, Sophia, Carla, and Rafael. Now, you've heard a little bit about me. I'm an Army vet, and I'm here at Google, and you may hear a little bit more about my journey. But what I'd like to do is get us grounded by having my colleagues introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their high-level work, as well as the teams that they work on. So Melissa, why don't you get us started?
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, so I work on Stadia, which is a cloud gaming platform that's part of Google. My specific role is a senior program manager. And so what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis is really overseeing our commerce operations function. So you can imagine we're a live business. We have a lot of, store events, merchandising, sales that are going on. And my team really looks across all of our publishers, et cetera, to plan sales and execute those to make our end users be able to purchase games, play games, and overall be delighted with their experience.
That's a pretty cool role. Thank you for sharing with us, Melissa. Let's move it over to John. John, why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm John Chan. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. Go Navy. I'm the only one on this panel. But I am an agency development manager. So working within our ad sales org, helping agencies to better serve end advertisers. So instead of having a direct relationship with advertisers, I help the agencies then serve advertisers and help grow their business in addition to their clients as well.
All right, I may spend some time with you finding out a little bit more about that. I'm only 9 months into Google, so thank you for sharing. Rafael, how about you?
Thanks, Jackie. So my name is Rafael Albarnaz, originally from West Babylon, New York. I served as a field artillery officer for about 8 years. And now I'm part of the digital advertising sales finance team at Google. There I partner with different sales leaders and their teams to help manage and grow their book of business and help them solve different types of business challenges. So on a day-to-day basis, that basically translates to owning different types of business reporting for the portfolio of clients that I oversee, doing some type of financial analysis on the client performance, working with the sales team to help structure different types of deals in different parts of the world, and then working internally with finance teams to find ways to improve current systems or processes that we have in place.
Very cool stuff. Thank you for sharing. How about you, Carla?
Hi, I'm Carla Mcintosh. I am a senior staff solutions consultant currently working within our GTech product area, where I serve as the head of talent acquisition for our Google Operations Center. And GTech's focus overall globally is to really help optimize the way that we support our customers. So my role is really critical in helping to identify talent for our Operations Center that handles a lot of phone, email, and chat support for our various product areas, as well as other types of specialized work. So really excited to be here.
Thank you so much for sharing. And last but never ever least, Sophia.
Thank you, Jackie. Hi, everyone. I'm Sophia. I'm a military spouse. My husband is Army Reserve and currently activated at Fort Rucker. I work in marketing, and in my day-to-day job, I work with some of our largest mobile OEMs, and together we develop strategies and campaigns for Android and the partner. you kind of see me as a marketing account manager for these OEMs. Before COVID, I would travel a lot. So a lot of my responsibilities is relationship building and kind of working with a partner globally. So a lot of trips to Asia to work with some of our biggest mobile OEMs.
I think it's super cool. Folks, as you listen, I mean, I hope that you were able to soak in the diversity and the backgrounds and the intersectionality of our panelists today. There's so much here to offer. As I think about my own military career, which I started very early, a little bit of overshare. I dropped out of college after the first semester of attending NYU. Without telling my parents, I signed up for the US Army, and they were hotter than fish grease, right? Never thought that I would be at this place right now. And so as I think about that and for your careers, why don't we start off by asking the question, did you ever think that you would be where you are today? And what was your path to landing the current role that you're in today? And we'll start off, I'll go with John first.
Thank you, Jackie. So for me, I was lucky enough to get out of the Navy as a surface warfare officer and go to business school at Columbia. And so there, it was a great time for me to transition and understand transition to civilian life after 6 years of active duty, but a total of 10 years in the Navy. And so I knew at that point when I graduated, I wanted to be in tech and be back home in the Bay Area. So I went to work for a startup for about 4 years, early stage startup, employee 12, we shot up to 130, went down to 30, and then we're growing again by the time I joined Google about 2 years ago. But even that path was a long one, but Google was something that I targeted as a place that I wanted to be. So you can actually go back and check how many times you applied. And I think in total, to get this job, I applied 15 times, got around, 8 hiring manager phone calls, 2 on-site interviews with, 4 rounds each, and then 1 offer. I was lucky enough to be in a position to be patient and to really understand where I wanted to go, but it took a lot of work to make sure that I had my stories right and I understood where I could add value to Google. So it was a long road, but well worth it.
Wow, I'm going to say tenacious John. I love that. I'm going to ask Melissa to weigh in on the same question. And folks, we've got a ton of questions to cover, so we may not have everybody answer all of the same questions. We're going to switch it up a little bit. And us military folks, whether you're a spouse or you serve, we all serve, and we'll be flexible and we'll go with the flow. Melissa, what can you share with us?
Yeah, I think, I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed right out of college. And so I was looking for my, big start. And one of the things that really struck me is I wasn't aware that I could get a job in tech, not being an engineer. I wasn't sure, how do I fit? How do I add value? I had no experience. So for me, the main thing was actually I had a couple, younger mentors who are like, hey, look into this. This is the path I've taken. And so that's really brought to mind how important it is to make sure you are visible in the community so that people like you know that path is possible. So they really started off my career. I started as a temporary contract worker at a different tech company. And that's sort of how I got my way in, and then kind of worked my way up through my career there. And it's been really rewarding. You have to be patient like everything, but just staying flexible to what opportunities can kind of come your way has been really helpful in my career development.
Thank you, Melissa. Let me ask Sophia to give your thoughts, and then we'll switch to another question such that the other panelists can weigh in as well.
Sounds good. I agree with Melissa. My path was definitely not straight to Google. I'm originally Swedish, so if you hear an accent, that's why. But I had no idea what I wanted to do before college. I went to college, did business because it felt the broadest, got into finance, hated it, was miserable, went back to school to do my master's when someone reached out on LinkedIn at Google in Stockholm and asked if I wanted to interview for an internship. And I was like, yeah, sure. I had no idea there was an office in Stockholm. Ended up going to the interviewed, had no idea what the role was for, but was offered it. The title was like bold intern. And then I started, and it ended up being in marketing. And I loved it. And that was 7 years ago, and I'm still here and have been living in 3 countries, 4 Google offices. So, just taking those opportunities, as Melissa said, I've just kind of been a yes sayer at Google, and that's really kind of taking me where I am today.
Thank you, Sophia. I love the story and I love the accent because I have one, having lived in Korea, being born in British Guyana, growing up in Brooklyn. It depends. You might get each accent in one sentence. So watch out, folks. Let's pivot a little bit and I'll go to Carla. For Carla and Rafael, here's a question for you. What was that inflection point or the moment for you that said, this is the role for me? Not just Google, but this is the role in the company. Were there a confluence of things that came together? What was it that solidified for you? This is it.
So for me, I'm an Air Force veteran, and I knew that I was not going to be a lifetime, retiree in the military. And so I started to take on different duties, additional duties, just planning for my sort of exit. And I ended up falling into the staffing industry, going to sign up with a company as a job seeker. And within about 10 minutes, the head of the organization said, you should do this for a living. And that was 22 years ago. And so I've kind of done all different types of staffing. One stint before I relocated to the Bay Area to join Google, I actually had my own staffing company in the tech sector for over a decade. And so for me, it was a huge decision to make. Google recruiting had reached out to me, I think it was maybe in 2006, about a year or two after I'd started my company, and they were looking to add to their leadership bench in the Texas market. And I politely declined. And then about a decade later, literally to the anniversary of hitting 10 years, I remembered those phone calls. And I was really thinking, okay, I've checked the entrepreneurial box. I've proven that I can build a sustainable business. Kind of what's next? And I had been in tech staffing for so long, but I never worked directly for a large tech company in that capacity. So I often said, what would it be like to have me in-house instead of, working as a intermediary for a company? And so called up the person that had reached out to me and said, if you have something in California, which is my hometown, I was looking to potentially relocate. And long story short, I got connected with a recruiter who said, we need you at corporate. And then would you be open to, going on site to interview with someone? And so for me, it was, when I thought of, giving up my own company, which is what I did, there was no other company that would make me do that. And it spoke to the reputation of Google, the values, the reputation, the opportunity. And I felt like it was a place that I could grow, stretch, and develop. And it really it didn't take a lot of thought at all. And I am surprised to say that I've been with Google nearly 6 years. And I thought that as a prior business owner, I'd have that day where I'd feel like, wow, what did you do? I have literally never for 1 millisecond regretted my decision. It has been singularly one of the most important and influential decisions I've ever made. And I'm so proud to be here.
Well, that warms my heart, given where I'm focused in HR and in staffing is a part of HR as well. So thank you so much for sharing. Rafael.
Thanks, Jackie. I do think that's a great question because a lot of folks, when they're going through this process, not really sure how to feel or whether they have what it takes to be at a company like Google. And I was exactly in that same position. Prior to coming to Google, I was at American Express, which was a great company. I was working on the global partnerships team, looking at some of the digital platforms and products that were coming out. And as I was working on that, I started looking around for other opportunities, and Google came across my radar. But even though I was in the tech space, the fintech space, I didn't think I had what it takes to go work at Google. I wasn't a software engineer. At that time, I didn't know how to code. There was a lot of things that I was unsure about. The digital advertising industry, I knew nothing about. And so what I did is I decided to learn a little bit of that on my own. I actually got certified in Google AdWords. I read a lot about the industry just to get sped up on it, went through the interview process, and I made it through. It was similar to John's, and then I had to speak to a lot of people, do a lot of networking, a lot of things outside of the official interview process as well in order to connect with people and understand the type of business, type of folks they look for. And even once I got the role, I still didn't feel like I belonged. I thought I was there and I didn't know what I was doing. But the more I talked to the folks on my team and I realized the diversity of backgrounds and just the incredible people that are working there alongside you, and you have no idea because it doesn't come out until you actually sit down and have a conversation with them. So I'd say it was probably a few weeks into the start of working at Google that I realized, wow, this really is the right role for me. Because even if I don't know everything, I have the support network to help me out. I have the tools to go figure it out. And everyone is committed to your personal success, regardless of what you're doing. And so if you go in there with a positive attitude, you're ready to work hard, roll up your sleeves. I mean, honestly, it's no different from what you did to make you successful in the Army or the, whatever military service you were in. Then you will be set up for success. And so for me, it was a few, maybe a month or so after I joined the team that I realized this is the place for me. And it's been fantastic. It's almost 3 years now, and it's great.
Very nice, very nice. So a lot of times, folks like myself have misperceptions about where you would fit into an organization, irrespective of which military branch you come from. And for me, I shared the story about dropping out of NYU after one semester, went to the Army. Guess what job I had? Okay, you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me. It would be hard to guess. I was an LVN, a urological nurse. If you don't know what that is, we can talk offline about it. So what I want to talk about are transferable or fungible skills. So urological nursing, I had the opportunity to lead at an early age where I ran the 121 EVAC Hospital Medical Center for urology, came out of the Army, pivoted to running call centers. I didn't even know what a call center was. Later on, went back to school and got a few letters behind my name for different things in management and HR, and started in technology when I didn't even think that I could. I would love to talk about transferable skills, but it would be a little bit unfair because I'm in HR. I talk about it all the time. I'd love to start off with John and talk about any of the skills that you've learned in your time in the Navy that you were able to see a direct connection that helps you to grow and to thrive today. And then I'd like Melissa to answer the same.
I think it's hard to, I think every military person that has transitioned out of the military has gone through this tough thing, scrubbing your resume, of trying to get rid of military jargon, to put it in a language that people across the desk who want you to succeed still need to understand the work that you've done. So I think part of it is really talking to the people that have come before you, talk to the people that are already where you want to be, to understand that language and what skills you should be trying to communicate to the people that are across from you. That being said, as a surface warfare officer, I was just basically a manager. I had over 6 years, I had 4 very different jobs with leading sailors that had all very different expertise. You have to get up to speed quickly, gain credibility with the people that you're leading or the people around you, the people that you are working with, and then help make decisions. And so one framework, and they don't call it this in the military, is the OODA loop that I use all the time, which is observe, orient, decide, and act, right? Whenever I'm lost, it's you bring it back to like, all right, collect information, understand where you are, make a decision, and then carry out that plan. And it's not something I use every day, but it is something where I'm lost and I've brought back. So, but again, more practically, talk to people to help learn how to communicate the skills you do have and how that translates into tech.
Very good. I think I'm going to put your acronym into practice. I hope folks are picking up on some of these golden nuggets. You should be taking copious notes like me and writing feverishly. However you learn, people learn differently. Melissa, what are your thoughts on transferable skills and any that you were able to glean that now you're still able to put it into practice?
Yeah, I think the one thing that stands out to me when I meet people in their careers who really I want to be like is they want to be in the place where they can contribute to making the decision. So they're, I'm a huge athlete. I played sports in college. So it's that mentality of like, put me in, coach. I want to be that clutch player. I want to go after it. And so I often see a lot of like data paralysis at a lot of different companies, a lot of different situations. So I think having the courage to make the call is huge. And it really sets people apart, because even if it's the wrong call, as long as your eyes are open, whether, here's the pros, here's the cons, you've gone through that and you're willing to stand behind that decision. And I think that that's something that you practice over time, right? When you're put in tough situations, and just to really hone that decision-making skill set is really important. I would also say the other thing for me is just teamwork and leadership. Like, I gained a lot of that in athletics and other experiences throughout my life, but being able to understand that people are motivated by different items. Some people, it's the project they're working on, others, it's the people they're working with, etc. So understanding that people are different, and how do you connect them together? And can you really be the kind of person who connects those people and then increases the velocity of that team of wherever they're trying to get to? I think, sometimes it sounds so simple, but people are really complex creatures. So learning to connect them together, it's a huge benefit. And I think that you can build that skill in multiple ways, whether it's classes, military background, experiences, past jobs, that can really make you a leader in whatever role you end up in.
Thank you. Given how much has been shared already, does any of our other panelists want to add anything else to what's been shared?
I will go. I think a lot of times for veterans, veterans actually have the skills in many areas. And I think the problem becomes how do you speak about the work that you've done? And so, to the point that the team has made, it's important if you see someone doing something that's interesting to you, of course, connect with them. But then you want to, try to find a job description someplace that talks about that role, and then look at your background. I'll give you a case in point. There was a time back when trying to get hired by someone, applicant tracking, systems. A lot of times they may be keyed in my case, so say talent acquisition. At the time, they may have looked for the keyword of recruiting. And so even though I say talent acquisition, same thing, it may not have picked that up. So that small thing is just how we speak about the work. And what happens is verbiage and the titling changes over time. So you want to make sure that you're speaking about your skill set in the most up-to-date way, because sometimes that legacy speak or using too many acronyms, things that won't resonate, because you can have the experience, but if you don't say it in the language that someone can receive, they won't know what to do with you. Everybody has an affinity for veterans, but if they can't clearly see this is what you do, it makes it harder. And honestly, it's a challenge. And so we want to make it easy for people to help us.
Carla, thank you. Spoken like a true veteran, pun intended. Listen, because I've been in HR for such a long time in leadership, those fungible and transferable skills sometimes, and I've also helped a lot of folks with their resumes, your story and your history should be celebrated. And far too often I see folks downplaying their lived and their work experiences, to the point where when folks ask me, well, how do you go from being a urological nurse to being a leader in HR? Guess what? I have 7 siblings. I've been leading since I was 8 years old. Every role that I've had, from the military to building call centers with T-Mobile, with Dell Technologies, and oil and gas with VMware, I've had a leadership role, which was overlaid by doing some type of HR work. So one of the tips that I will give to everybody that's in front of me that I can see, as well as for those of you who are still listening out there, and I hope that you stay with us, is that you should always refresh your resume. You should be your own CEO and continually working to fine tune and make sure that your marketability in terms of staying up to speed in your area of expertise, should always be job one for you. You are the owner of how you drive your career. And so with that thought in mind, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, because us military folks, we're competitive, we're fun. In fact, I was thinking this morning about some of the competitive things that I've done in my career, where my voice was so tiny when I joined the Army that my drill sergeant said it wasn't fully developed. And so they forced me to call cadences. Y'all know about cadences, right? So we would run and call cadences, and we were very aggressive, and I was at the front and he would just drill it into me, and I'd go, down by the river, took a little walk, met up with Carla, had a little talk, bad part, pushed her in the river, I didn't watch her drown, no more Carla hanging around. So guess what? Why am I sharing this little cadence? I'm sharing it because even in that, work requires having a little fun sometimes. And I bring fun to my team. I bring cadences. We flip it around when we're having competitive moments, and we flip those words to say, maybe we met up with a competitor of Google. And the last part of it is, hey, don't be a fool. Somebody said we were number 2, but they lied because we're number 1. Google. Let's be interested in Google. Here's my question. And I'll start off with Rafael. How do you balance the spirit of being competitive by being a great team player and making it work to grow and to thrive? You didn't know where I was going with all of that craziness. I know.
No, this is great. I love it. I am definitely competitive by nature. Similar to Melissa, I played sports all my life as well. So being competitive is something I thrive on. And whenever I go into a new organization, especially Google, one of the things I want to figure out is, how do we win, right? What do I need to do in order to perform? But there's multiple levels to that. There's the individual contributor level. Then there's also the folks around you. What can I do to help those around me perform better? How does my team win? What can I do to make them succeed? And there's a lot of folks across Google who are very, very impressive in many ways. I mean, sometimes I just look around and I'm like, wow, it's incredible that I'm still here. But I think it's important to be able to see those levels at different stages. When you're doing individual contributor work, it's important to focus in, what does success look like? How do I stay competitive? How do I develop, for me, this financial model that makes sense, or that's coming to an outcome that we think is going to happen? And then how do I challenge those that I work with, but in a good way? You challenge the idea, not the person. So if they have a different understanding or they present a different forecast, let's dive into that. Let's unpack it. Let's get an understanding. What are your assumptions? Where are my assumptions? Where are we not aligned? And let's discuss that. So I think there's a lot of ways to get competitive within the team. And then, of course, as the team as a whole, you can also be competitive and figure out, how do I make these guys better? How do I make them think of things that I would come up with that they wouldn't? And it's the same thing the other way around. They'll have other ideas on how to break down a complex concept that I might not get a few times. And so asking them and working together, I feel like those two things are very, very intertwined at Google, the teamwork as well as the competitive nature. And it helps everyone, I think, up level themselves in order to perform at their best.
Very good. Thank you. Sophia, thoughts on being competitive and balancing the critical component of teamwork?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Rafael. Like, I won't succeed if my team doesn't succeed. So I think that's super important. I think also, just having really amazing people around you, like, it makes you competitive, but it also, like, helping them get better will help you learn and grow as a person. So, I think just kind of having insight of like where you want to go, but also not losing sight of the team is super important, because you're not going to end up where you want to go if the team isn't with you. And I think that's true for most teams, that you just need to, for you to succeed, you need to make the team succeed overall.
Very good. And let's go back to John, and then we'll pivot to another question.
I also played college sports, and I think that beat a lot of that competitiveness out of me. But it's not. It's in a different way than what Raph talked about, because it's the same thing. Ultimately, it's about the team, and I know that I'm my own worst critic. Right, I'm the hardest on myself. I know if I put my all in, if my performance was less than what I put into it. So all that's to say, like, comparing myself to others, or I found that to be very negative to my own mental state, and that for the most part, it's not a zero-sum game, right? And thinking about my own success and the success of others is really where I've been able to improve on my own mental state. And I will talk about this because I talk about it to any veteran I ever talk to, is that I was in Afghanistan, no combat. I had a hard time finding out who I was as a civilian coming out of the military. So focusing on the process that everybody will be going through, spouses, veterans, everything, transitioning out of that into the civilian world is really important. And so if I got stuck comparing myself to the people who have been working in consulting at Columbia Business School, I would have been in that hole for much longer. And so focusing on the process, what I'm working through, what I can control, and really at the end of the day, did I put in a good day's work that added value to my team and the company is really the most important part. But certainly competition and healthy competition is still a huge part because everybody here is a high achiever.
Thank you, John. That's really good. Melissa, you spoke earlier about mentorship, and you've mentioned several other things. I'd like to ask you and Carla to talk about mentorship a little bit more, as well as sponsorship. And just for grounding purposes, and not for you, but in answering the question, I want to make sure that should there be any ambiguity for our audience that's listening in, mentorship is vastly different from sponsorship. The sponsorship comes about by way of someone who takes full accountability to sing your praises. They're not just giving you feedback, but they're singing your praises, making sure that your name is mentioned in rooms or at tables where you may not be sitting, and really elevating and amplifying the brilliance that you bring to the table, such that you can either get promoted or get a job or move to another level, learning a new skill set. How is that amplified in your life, mentorship and sponsorship?
I would say, regardless of educational background, past experience, mentorship and sponsorship is singularly the thing that has changed my career. So it's hugely important. And I there's tons of books on it. There's tons of talks on it. How do you do it successfully? How do you make it work? And it's definitely more art than science. I would say for me, sponsorship is what really changed the trajectory of my career, but mentorship is what got me on the career, right? So chatting with a lot of different folks about, hey, what should I do? Is this a good fit for me? What do you see are my strengths, right? So I think part of being a good mentee is understanding what gaps you have and what you're looking to get out of that relationship and how they can help you. I think it's really challenging to be a mentor or even a sponsor if you're not sure what that person needs from you and what they're looking for, right? So if you can come prepared with, I want to be here, how should I do that path? What was your path? How do I get that? And I think with sponsorship, the questions are a little bit more direct. I'm looking for this kind of opportunity. Do you see this coming in the direction I'm going? How do I get to that opportunity? So you're really targeting specific opportunities to raise your visibility or your level of experience. But I can't underscore enough, it's so important to find those people who are going to be in your court and who are going to be your backroom advisor, right? And the person out in front kind of being your spokesperson. So hugely important.
Thank you. How about you, Carla?
First, great answer, Melissa. I was going to say that. But I think, one key difference and a really important point when you think about sponsors, in addition to people representing you in rooms and at tables that you're not at, they also, in many cases, are able to actually directly make the decision, meaning they're building up a team and they remember you and they want to help to elevate you in some way. But for me, both are important. You need to be coachable. So you need to be able to be a mentee. You need to be open with yourself, meaning when you get feedback, instead of trying to subconsciously disprove it, you need to lean into the feedback saying, how could this be true? Or what could this possibly be a little bit true? And what am I going to do about it? Or ask for feedback on ways that you can address it. And of course, from a sponsorship perspective, leveraging that platform that you get, because sponsors are busy typically. So you want to make sure that you're optimizing their time. But I'd say a different spin for me, because I'm someone that prides myself as being a good leader. I do think it's important throughout your journey to encourage followership. And you will get that by also mentoring people and sponsoring people. So I think we can't be, selfish and only want to benefit from that. We have to pay it forward. And that's a key tenet to the way that I work, is always helping to elevate others. The reason being is our careers are very, very long and the trajectories are very different, and people move industries all the time. And there are people sometimes that they shoot up in organizations. And you never know, the person that you used to mentor might actually be able to be a sponsor to you at some point.
So here goes my mute button messing with me just a little bit. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about our esteemed military spouses who, in the process, they too, for those who have spouses, are along with you on the journey. Sophia, given what you've experienced, how were you able to keep your sanity? We keep it real here, folks. That's number one. Keep your sanity as you moved along the continuum with your spouse. And at the same time, balance what your career needs to the point that you are here now. And what would you offer to those out there as some of the key things that they should do as spouses?
That's a great question. Yeah, I think honestly for me, the past like 2 years have been we've basically had my husband on deployment, cancel deployment, deployment, cancel deployment, deployment. It's been ongoing for the past 2 years. And it's very nerve wracking. You know, you never know what's going to happen. Like we thought he was going to leave in 1 week and then, you know, he stays. So it's very back and forth. So I think resilience is something obviously you have to work on. What I do is just honestly use my network. I'm still a relatively new military spouse. So even at Google, like we have such great resources and like what we do, like I just feel like I have so much support both from VetNet, but also just my wider team. And I'm a person that, you know, I'm myself at work. So if I'm anxious at work, people know, which I like at Google, that you can be so open. And I think, you know, that also helps like fostering those relationships with your colleagues that maybe aren't purely kind of work related, but they see you as that human. So just showing that side and showing your vulnerability has really worked for me. And like, you know, providing flexibility. I'll be driving down to Alabama next month and I'll be able to spend, you know, a month and a half there, fully supported team. So like, if you can get people to understand your situation, they will be more flexible for you. I think that's a big learning for me, just being transparent and, you know, actually being able to share what you're, you know, nervous about or those types of things.
Thank you, Sophia. We have a couple of questions that's coming up in a little bit, but before we switch to that, for each of you, what, if anything, would you recommend to those listening out there that has been the most important learning during your journey that has landed you to the place that you are today? And to kick us off, let me start with, let's go to Rafael.
Thanks, Jackie. I think one of the big things that I've learned since business school, once I transitioned out and then going through American Express and Google, is the power of practicing your narrative. At business school, they talk about it a lot, refreshing your resume and thinking through your background. But I know for me, it took me a lot of time to kind of go through it and really create this sharp message that can cut through a lot of the noise to let someone else know who doesn't know my background, what I bring to the table and the value that I can provide to their team and to their company. Because in most of these interactions, you're not sitting there for a long time and getting to know them. It's a quick few minutes, and you want that someone to be able to remember, wow, you know, I talked to John or Melissa or somebody, and be like, I really remember this is what they said and this is what they want to do. So for me, it was practicing that narrative in front of a mirror, just thinking through my story, which examples really resonate with people, and being very sharp about what I wanted to do. When others know what you're moving towards, they can then talk about you to other people. If they know, hey, I talked to this person and he's really, really interested in the tech space in this specifically. I found that to be very helpful.
Thank you, Rafael. Carla.
I think that you need to always have a plan and you need to share it with people to ensure that they hold you accountable. Because what happens is a lot of times people have a lot of ideas and it's in their head, but I mean, physically, like literally write it down, share that plan and encourage people to hold you accountable to it. And I think that helps because sometimes, you know, life happens, you get pulled in different directions, but having trusted people, trusted advisors, people that you respect, keep you on task will be helpful. And I think too, if they understand what your plan is, they in the periphery can be out there helping you with that plan in rooms that you're not in, as an example.
I think that's such an important point. Melissa.
Yeah, you know, I have two. I couldn't choose. So it kind of goes back to something Carla was saying earlier about how you are your personal brand and really thinking about yourself as a brand and how other companies promote their brands. It can really help you reframe your experiences. So I think words are super powerful. They can either box you in or they can highlight the experiences that you've had. So for instance, like, I walked dogs in the neighborhood. That's kind of very tactical. That's saying what you did. Or it's, I started a business, out of my home at 12 years old. Like, there's different ways to frame things that can really speak to the larger accomplishment that you got out of there. And I think that's really powerful when you're trying to explain why your experience can be really relevant to a business. So I would say trying to always think about reframing from being a little bit tactical to the higher level of what you achieved is my advice there.
All right. I want to be mindful of what we have coming up in the dory. Who else would like to share very quickly?
I can share super quickly. It's
Thank
maybe
you.
a little more controversial, but I think it's okay sometimes to also not have a plan. I think, at least for me, I wouldn't be here today if I'd followed that 10-year plan that I set up. I was going to be, in investment banking, and I was going to be working in London, and I'm right now in New York working in marketing. I have no experience of marketing. So kind of sometimes being open to opportunities that come, along the way, I think is really important, and just keeping an open mind. Sometimes it's better to try something and then, you can always pivot. But for me, at least, it's been really, just keeping the open mind and just trying new things sometimes has really taken me to a new path. And, it's very exciting sometimes too.
Sophia, I like the controversy that you brought up. My plan went into a totally different direction. In my family, my dad told me, look, you're going to go through college all the way until you earn your doctoral degree, and that's when I'll come to your graduation. And he meant it. And I went a totally different path. I mean, who knew he was, I'll tell you the stories offline if you're ever interested, but I like that. And it speaks to what I said earlier on and some of the comments that you've made about intersectionality and the fact that we're also different and unique, right? We bring so much to the table where there are similarities in some places, but there are also differences. And when you blend those two together, it's a beautiful thing. And so I embrace the diversity of thought and the experiences that you shared today. All right, what's our first question that we have up? We do want to honor the folks that are online. I can't see it. Let me see. Can someone drop what it's saying into, because I'm not able to see it. So by the way, folks, when you get to a certain age, as I'm waiting to see this question, you start wearing reading glasses. And that's not a bad thing either. You just have to embrace the joy because there is so much goodness in living to see another day. What does our question say?
Jackie, I can read it for you if you'd like.
Thank you so much.
Sure. So Joshua L. asks, what if you're interested in a job and think that some of your skills can be applied, but you have paralysis from thinking you might be underqualified?
All right, that's a good question. And Rafael, I'm going to have you to answer it. But first, I will say, stop it. Cut it out. Stop thinking small of yourself and get away from the paralysis. And I say that I'm coming from a place of love and understanding this. Sometimes it's challenging and it's hard, and you may feel that you're an imposter. And that's why those mentors and having folks who are skilled at helping military folks with their resume to really deconstruct meaning out of military speak into corporate speak can really help you to rationalize those fungible skills that we spoke about. So that's my 2 cents. And I'm an HR person who's ex-military that help people to do this all the time. So first thing to you is I want you to stop doubting yourself. Rafael, what would you add to it?
I think that's a great start. I appreciate that, Jackie. I'm going to be a little more formulaic in my method, being part of the finance community. What I would do in that situation is I try and understand what are the components of these skills that you need to learn in order to get to that field. There's probably a way to break it down. Whereas you want to go into finance, it's okay, I need some kind of basic understanding of accounting maybe, or a P&L. or a few different things. I know there's a lot out there, but going to, I think it might have been Carla that said this earlier, make a decision, right? Look at all the stuff that's out there, figure out, prioritize them in your own way, talk to a bunch of folks that are in this field, and then make a decision. Say, all right, this is what I need to learn. Here are the 3 things. And that journey in and of itself can show hiring managers that you're willing, able, and committed. You're passionate about learning something new and being part of the team. I mean, they're going to see you as someone who didn't know anything about it, but because you were so into it, you took time out of your day-to-day, out of your regular job to learn about something new, and that's what you want to go towards. I think that would be helpful in these situations where you're paralyzed because you don't really know where to start. Pick a spot and go, and then you can always make a deviation from there.
Love it. Love it. Let's see, we'll get one other person to weigh in on this one. John, why don't you weigh in and then we'll go to the next question.
One thing that I've learned to kind of piggyback off what Raf said earlier is learning to tell your own story. And so as part of that, you being humble and you focusing on maybe what your team did. And anytime I was given an award, it was not about me. It was about the sailors that I led or the team that we built or where we were going. It wasn't about me. And when you talk to people at Google and you interview at Google, the interviewers are on your side. We want you to succeed in that interview room, but it does not serve you, nor does it serve me as the interviewer for you to be humble and to downplay your achievements. I need to understand that you can handle the job, that you can add value, that the work that you've done has driven impact for the organizations that you've worked with. So as you are preparing or there's, don't lie, don't overstate it, but also if you understate it, you're not giving yourself a chance and you're not giving, us as Googlers or whoever you interview with a chance to know how you affect that organization and how you could help theirs going forward. So, learn to tell your story. And then also it doesn't serve you to serve anybody for you to be especially humble in the interviewing process.
Thank you, John. I've once heard the saying, brag humble. It's okay to brag on yourself because it's an audition part of it, right? And that you bring your best self to the table and you have to punctuate those critical points of where you've achieved success, what it is that you did and what drove impact. So thank you for sharing the specifics there. Let's look at our next question that has popped up. And all of a sudden, I'm able to read this. It's fantastic. Zach H. asked, I'm currently deciding whether or not to pursue my MBA before entering the civilian job market. In your experiences, how much more marketable would an MBA make me or others in getting a business role as opposed to just focusing on getting a new job? That's a very good question. Thank you so much for asking. And I have answers, but I'm going to pass it to Carla first, and then we'll get a couple of other thoughts on it.
So I think this is where looking at each individual role and its minimum requirements comes into play. There are some roles, like, for example, in strategy and ops, where having an MBA is certainly a door opener. However, what I would say is, depending on your individual circumstance, there sometimes is an opportunity to get sort of paid training. And what I mean by that is, if you are qualified for a role based on the minimum qualifications that you already have without the MBA, you join an organization where you can pursue it in parallel. I would strongly recommend that if that is an option and your lifestyle can support, working and completing the MBA. It really just depends on where you are. And in some cases, there are times once you get into a role, you may realize based on your trajectory and what you're learning that you don't need to you may be able to sort of delay getting the MBA, or you may not even need the MBA, or perhaps another degree program might be better suited for where that role will evolve to or where your interests have pivoted to. So I hope that's helpful, and I'd love to know what Jackie thinks about that.
Okay, so full disclosure, I'm an adjunct faculty for my alma mater, Baker University in Kansas City. I teach online classes, all MBA, and a couple of doctoral programs focused on management and leadership. Here's my answer. It depends. It depends on the job that you currently have and whether or not you have the bandwidth and will be able to commit to the rigor of the program. And it also depends on the points that Carla mentioned, in that what are the minimum viable qualifications for the job? You know, for me, I went back to school after attaining my LVN in the military. That was just an associate as a licensed vocational nurse, but I started working on my bachelor's in management. And then when I exited, I continued to work on my degree in management and HR, went on to do my MBA with a concentration in HR, and later on earned my doctoral in organizational leadership and management. None of my jobs require me to have that. But because I love the duality of pedagogy with lived and work experiences, that it worked for me, because my retirement gig is teaching. And so I keep it on the side. So it all depends. And I say each person, it's very individualized. And so take some time to think about where you are right now. And if if you're as competitive like me, it's like, boom, 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 I got to go for it. But it's not just about being competitive. It's rationalizing if you have a family and other things that you need to take care of. There isn't a straight line with this answer. If you want to talk to any of us outside of this conversation, we can get your contact information, and we're happy to do that for you to help you rationalize it, because sometimes you just got to talk it and get it out of your head to figure it out. Let's see, let's get one more other person to weigh in on this one. Melissa, what are your thoughts? And then we'll pivot to the last question.
So similar to what Carla said, I actually, I did her path basically, which is I started at a tech company and then got my MBA while I was working. For me, I was already in the company, so it wasn't really going to help me get that job, but it was just something I really needed to kind of prove to myself that I had the knowledge to be a good contributing coworker and really lead in the company. I will say it really depends on what you're looking to get out of it. I think MBAs are really interesting things where it's like, it's all about what you put into it, because a lot of the MBA is the people you meet and the companies that you're exposed to who come in to present, give you case studies, etc. So I would also say, I think if you can delay it to the point where you know what you're trying to get out of it, it's a lot more helpful. It can be a lot, it can help you guide you into where you want to go to your career versus, I just need an MBA and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it, or, what industry I want to focus on.
Very good. Nicely done. Let's go to our last one so we can get the other panelists away. And so our next question is from Clayton Ask, where he asked, do you find it very challenging to work and collaborate with many different types of engineers at Google? This one is juicy. I like it. Who wants to go first? John, I'll let you go first.
I'm in sales. They put a hard line between engineers and me because I am not necessarily going to bring them the most insightful things. But I would say that it's just, Google's such a large company that you could come across engineers, more likely product folks that are collecting a lot of user stories to understand what are my pain points, what are the end advertisers' pain points, and then it kind of filters through kind of the product management side of things. So I haven't dealt with a whole lot of engineers in my career here at Google so far.
Okay, Sophia?
Yeah, we work in marketing. We do work a lot with engineers because we're the voice of the consumer internally, right? We do all the research and we share it back to them. Is it difficult? I would say, it depends on the person, right? But in general, no. I just feel like most people at Google are so passionate. I've very rarely come upon someone who doesn't want to collaborate, and people listen. People are interested, and especially depending on which teams you work with. Right now, I'm on the Android side, so new products coming out or new features, they're just excited and they will listen to kind of what we're doing. So I would say no, but that's my personal experience.
Thank you. Rafael, what would you say?
I don't think it's that challenging either, to be honest, but I can see how it can be for some folks. Going back to what John said, there's so many different people in the company, so you're not bumping into engineers all the time. However, if you do find yourself in that part of the org where you're working with them, I found that at the end of the day, they're passionate about what the end result is, kind of what Sophia said. And if that's the language where, hey, we want to deliver this amazing product to billions of people all over the world and have a positive impact, I mean, they're on board with that. When it comes down to the ones and the zeros and the nuances around it, you could probably learn from how they think so formulaic. It's actually very impressive to kind of see these folks talk about things that they're building. It's incredible. And I get lost in some of the jargon, but I find it as a learning experience for me. And you know that there are also people at the end of the day, and you tell them your stories and they're there to listen. You know, we watch baseball games, talk about sports teams, whatever is out there. So I don't find it too difficult. And I think most veterans are used to speaking with people from all walks of life. So I don't think it's too difficult of a pivot for us to just pick up conversations and develop relationships that way.
I think that's such a great point. I too do not believe it to be difficult, because if on one side we believe that engineers are difficult, guess what? On the other side, they're thinking that we are difficult. What it is that we're diverse. We're just different. And that's okay. Imagine if we were all the same, and that all of us are left brain versus right brain. And then there's some of us that are in the middle. I think that's the beauty of what makes a company tick and what makes it work. I also find, and I try not to be biased, and my role requires that I shouldn't be biased, but I do find that military people, based upon how we are exposed to being very operational and rhythmic in how we do things, can relate more to engineers. So I find that it's an easier transition, and we all have the power to pivot, right? On those opportunities where something is not working out, military folks are accustomed to, as Rafael noted, working with people from all walks of life. And so you find ways to make it work and help teamwork and collaboration to come to life. Wow. We have covered so much today, and I hope that you're still with us and you're listening in. First of all, thank you for spending time with us. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, John, Sophia, Carla, and Rafael, for the wonderful stories and the helpful tips and information that you've shared with all of us today, and to the folks listening in. I know that I've learned a lot. I'm sure everyone else did, even if it's a little golden nugget that you've taken from this. Participating in this panel, folks, has really been amazing. To all of the viewers out there, if you're interested in learning more about Google, I hope you are. Any of our roles, any opportunities, or if you'd like to review our career readiness materials, please check out our resources tab on the Google VetNet Career Week landing page, which you should have access to. Now, following this, we'll move into our industry panel starting at 12 p.m. Pacific time, and that's 3 p.m. Eastern time. You can stay logged into the live stream to hear more about the tech industries from panelists who will come from Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, Salesforce, LinkedIn, and Citrix. Oh my God, what a lineup. And again, if you're interested in the consumer packaged goods, retail, or healthcare, life sciences industries, you can view those panels on our career landing page as well. All of our functional and industry panels will be recorded, so you can view it at a later time. We recognize that you're very busy, but for now, here's what we'll do. Once again, it has been a pleasure spending time with you. We thank you for watching and hope to see you in a Google office soon. Good luck. Take good care.